Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to stay in a rut and avoid growth, a complacency primer. In this channel I talk a lot about self-growth and development and how we need it in our lives. And also what are the signs of complacency or being comfortable with our surroundings and environment. Life is not always about growth and striving for newer and newer things. Sometimes your mind and body needs a lot of rest and recovery from all that growth. In moderation, this period of rest can be really helpful for you to prepare for the next phase of your growth. But too much rest can lead into comfort and eventually complacency. And you might get too comfortable with your current surroundings and you might not want to grow at all. After a period of really long growth in my 20s, I started to stagnate in my 30s. I got comfortable with my life in my 30s and little by little I started to get complacent about my environment and surroundings. I thought that I had it all and I was no longer striving for bigger and bigger goals in my life. I told myself that I've achieved everything that I wanted to and I was a bit lost where to head next in my life. And my energy started being siphoned away from my primary goals. I started to get complacent and comfortable with my surroundings. And I started to direct my energies away from goals to being more comfortable in my life. It took recent big changes in my life to jolt me out of that thinking and get me back on the path of growth. And I was able to look back and see that I was stagnating for this period of time and I didn't even realize it. So where did I go wrong? Let's explore how I slowly slid into complacency and stagnation. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about my background, my guide to staying stagnant, and my general thoughts. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, hit that notification bell if you like this content. And let's go. In my last couple of videos, I've been talking about massive life changes and how that's been affecting my life. And in parallel to this, I've been exploring my thoughts and feelings about the last couple of years and what led up to these massive life changes. Through my reflections, I've realized that I've been in a massive rut for many years leading up to this. And I've used a lot of excuses to justify why I stayed in this rut and not change my life. Legitimate reasons like the pandemic were mixed in with excuses like I was just too tired to search for a new job, or that I needed to focus on more creative aspects of my life and focus away from my bigger goals. What the key takeaway was that I wasn't challenging my notion of stagnation. I was refusing to answer that question of why I was stagnating. I didn't really let it even enter my mind. I told myself that I needed to coast for a while and just rest. But did I really want that in the first place? I don't think so. I think what happened to me is I didn't want to change or grow anymore. I just wanted to be comfortable, or as comfortable as I can be. Or that I wanted other things to change around me before I would change. I would no longer be proactive about my changes. Either way, I wasn't putting in the effort to dictate my goals and life direction anymore. But in the past few months, as things started to change for me, I started to take a hard look at my previous excuses. And the thing that I realized was what I was telling myself was exactly what is needed to stay in a rut or be complacent. And after I realized this, I needed to get that out into the world to prevent others from going down the same route. Because when we're sliding into a rut, we will believe our own excuses. We might not challenge them critically. So if you see yourself doing these things, ask yourself if you're stagnating as well, and whether or not you need some new goals or activity to jolt yourself into revitalizing your life. So here are my tips on how to stay in a rut. Number 1, convince yourself you're done. This is a mind trick, but sometimes you might not even consciously know you're saying it to yourself. Basically, your mind's saying that you're done accomplishing some goal you set out to do. And now that you've finished, you can take time and just rest, relax, and recover. This means that you give yourself permission to coast for a while and not do anything strenuous, or set another goal for yourself. This can be good in moderation because it gives you rest, but over a long period of time, it can get you into a rut. Because once you completed your goals and you don't have a next goal, your motivation can wane over time. And you need consistent goals as interim milestones throughout your life to keep your motivation high. This is especially true when you're young, when you have a lot of energies and you can set your goals to whatever you want them to be. But if you start believing that you're finished with your goals, you might be in big trouble long term. And the younger you are when you tell yourself that you're done and you don't have to do anything hard, the harder your life can get in the future. Because life is long and you never know what will happen in the future, so you have to be prepared for possible growth opportunities. For the last couple of years, I told myself that I was content in my career and that I've achieved all of my goals that I set out to have. Even though I'm fairly young in my career, I thought that I've achieved all the goals that I needed to. I didn't start challenging the assumption of what else I could be or what else that I wanted to do for my future. And this was because I completed a large challenging goal that I wanted to do all my life and I completed it too early in my career. And afterwards, all I wanted to do is to not do that challenging thing again. I wanted to rest and recover from it. But what I didn't realize was that the longer the recovery phase, the more you get comfortable with that rest period. That's where the danger lies. I didn't have anything near term to strive for. So I would suggest you always have some stretch goals after the big goals or milestones in your life. because then you can have other goals in your life that you can work towards so that you don't have the stagnation period. Keep that motivation high to prevent long periods of comfortable rest periods. But if you want to keep staying in that rut, then tell yourself you're done and then you can rest afterwards. Number 2, get upset at little things. When I was changing my life every few years or so, I had a very high tolerance for things not going smoothly. This is because problems and issues always came up and I had to figure them out or else I'd be sunk. And I dealt with these big problems all the time, so I normalized my frustration around them. At that period of my life, I was comfortable with frustration and I knew how to handle myself. When you are comfortable or complacent, you are used to things going right all the time, and you aren't used to dealing with significant setbacks anymore, or even the little setbacks. And over time, you lose the ability to stay calm during those little frustrations in life. In the past few years, I've experienced this a lot. The more comfortable I became, the more frustrated and annoyed I got with the little problems in my life. But unfortunately, life throws you curveballs all the time, and I wasn't prepared mentally to deal with them. I would start to get upset and angry at things just being inefficient. It's hard to really notice this change because it happens so gradually, but your friends and family might clue you in on it. They might be able to tell you that you're more irritable now with the little things in life. And this might even occur more frequently in your life. This may be some indication that something might be off, especially if you didn't get annoyed with that in the past. So the more upset you get about the little things in life, the more likely you are to forget about the hardships you endured in the past, and how you were used to be able to let the little things go in your life. Number 3, modifying your goals to fit your current life. This is a sneaky one, but when you're in a rut, you will start to modify your life's goals to fit your current lifestyle to make it more comfortable for you to achieve your goals. And you'll start to notice that the goals that you are setting aren't exactly challenging or new to you. This is due to your mind wanting consistency and not necessarily the challenge of you struggling with something new. And your mind might not be ready to take on that new challenge and struggle with it and get better at it. The ratio between new goals versus comfortable goals might tilt in the favor of comfortable goals. In the past couple of years, I've stopped setting goals for me to meet a certain number of people per year. Part of this was due to the pandemic, but the other part of this was that I was just comfortable with the people around me. And I didn't want to take on the challenge of meeting new people and then growing a connection with them over a long period of time. But as life always changes, the pandemic changed the dynamics with all of my friends. Definitely during the pandemic, I lost some friends that I was very close to prior to the pandemic. And even with my close friends, I'm not able to see them with the frequency that I did before the pandemic. I got complacent with the number of friends that I had, and I always thought that they would be there for me. And had I continued with the goal of meeting more people, I don't think I would be in a deficit with my friend count. So an easy question to ask yourself if you're in a rut or not is to see whether or not your goals are easy to accomplish or hard. And if the goals you're setting are easy, ask yourself, why is that happening? Are you taking it easy on yourself to rest and relax, or you actually want to set easy goals for you to knock out? Goals shouldn't be easy. They should be in service to you bettering yourself in some subject in your life. So take a look at the goals you're setting in your life. If you're not taking challenging goals, then you might be starting to slide into a rut. Number 4, getting comfortable with feeling lazy. This was something that took me a very long time for me to realize and acknowledge, that I was feeling lazier and lazier as the years progressed. I would, for a long time during the pandemic, not set any long-term goals, and I just focused on comfort and rest. I didn't really feel like doing a lot of things but playing video games. As the pandemic is starting to subside, I'm still feeling that need to rest and not do a lot of things. Not that I wanted to go back to the chaos and stress that I had before the pandemic, but I wanted to be in some kind of between rest and stress, because I wanted to enact more ways of self-care and not burn out more. But I think that during the pandemic, the pendulum swung the other way too much. Now I'm focused more on comfort and rest. And it's harder now to get my mind more engaged with the things that I need to do in my life. Now, because of the life changes in my life, I'm getting back to where I was prior to the pandemic, and the energy and the hard work that follows. It's definitely giving me the kick in the butt that I needed to get back into that kind of hardworking mind state, to prepare for what's coming in the future, and get out of the feeling of wanting to be lazy and stay in that state for a very long time. Although the takeaway from my experience is that I must rest and recover from time to time, and practice self-care whenever possible. So if you're starting to feel lazy and want to stay in that state, you might be in the first stages on your way to stagnation. And number 5, stop taking bold moves. Making bold moves in life is a direct contrast to complacency. When you're in a rut, it's very hard for you to convince yourself to take a bold move. Everything that you're feeling in your body and mind wants it to be exactly the same, with no changes. In this case, you might be able to make some small moves, but definitely nothing big to rock the boat. When you're comfortable, a large change is hard to do because it messes up the balance of everything going on in your life. And if you introduce that big thing, it might cause you a lot of uncertainty, anxiety, and stress along the way. It was really tough for me to start a new job. I was really comfortable at my old job and I didn't really want to start again as a newbie and rebuild work relationships that I've had in my life that I built over the last 7 years. A job change at my stage and my age was a bold move for me. I ultimately made the bold move of taking a new job because the logic of me staying at my old job just didn't make sense. Even though most of my emotional and some of my logic parts of my brain wanted me to stay. Because the comfort of my old job was overwhelming, and I had a really good reason to stay in that job. When you stop taking big chances and bold moves in your life, you're firmly in the comfortable stage. Sometimes taking that bold move when you're uncertain and you don't know all the outcomes is the best way to live life. Because figuring out as you go along might be a fun process that you're missing out on. Otherwise, to stay in a rut, just don't make big moves. So here are my thoughts on how to stay in a rut. So even though this channel is geared towards self-growth and development, nobody is perfect. We all go through periods of stagnation. And in these periods of stagnation, we might convince ourselves to do things that we don't actually consciously believe. We can actually convince ourselves that we don't need to grow anymore, and we can stay comfortable in this state forever. In many of my previous videos, I talk about setting large goals and having plans to achieve those large goals. But in my own life, I didn't set up enough goals or stretch goals in my career. I didn't continue to ask the question of what more can I do? How more can I help others? Or what more can I do to help advance the field of engineering? Complacency is very hard to conquer, and we all go through one form or another eventually. The key is to see it for what it is and recognize it before we get into a state in which we cannot overcome complacency. The longer we stay in it, the harder it is for us to make a bold decision and get ourselves out of it. Nothing is impossible and it can be done, but perhaps at a greater cost in life. So those are my tips for staying complacent and being in a rut. As an advocate for personal growth and development, knowing the self-growth portion of it is only one part of the situation. Knowing and understanding complacency and how you can get there is the other part of the overall picture. You need to understand both aspects in order for you to maximize your personal growth and development. Because knowing what you need to avoid is half the problem with self-growth and development. And especially knowing the root causes of complacency and what can happen to you over the long term. Knowledge is power, and knowing more about a circumstance will help us to control our own fates. So thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment down below on a time that you felt complacent and how did you get out of it. And I'll see you next time.